Today I'm going to be talking about my now not so secret second life. I've talked about it a little bit on social media, but now we're gonna really get into it. About a year ago, I got a job waitressing at a strip club in Manhattan, and I'm gonna talk about what that has been like. It's definitely been one of the more insane things I've chosen to do with my life, but also just a really cool and interesting experience in an industry that is stigmatized that most people don't really understand. Before we get started, just a couple of disclaimers. First, I'm not revealing the name of the club that I work at. I'm not revealing where exactly I work. I still work there. And so for my own safety, I will not be disclosing any identifying details about my place of work. And also, I go by a different name there. So don't go around asking for me because it's not gonna work. Second, sex work is a very difficult profession. They work so fucking hard and they deserve so much respect. Whatever negative opinions you have about sex workers are not welcome here. So first, getting the job. Why are you doing this and how did you end up in this position? I had a job that actually involved my degree that I could actually put on my LinkedIn, but that kind of went to shit at the end of 2023. Interviewed for a lot of things that didn't work out. Fucking hated job searching. One of my friends from college is a dancer in Atlanta, and before she was a dancer, she was a shop girl. And she was talking to me about it a few years ago, and I was like, that sounds fun. That actually sounds really interesting. But at the time I had a job that was working out really well for me, and so I didn't pursue it. So yeah, at some point I got on Craigslist, saw a job posting for a strip club, and there I was, interviewing to be a cocktail waitress. The interview was super easy and short. I wore an outfit that would be wildly inappropriate for any other job interview, but was perfectly slutty for this one. I gave them my resume. I was like, straight up, I don't have any hospitality experience. And they were like, that's okay. She asked me my age, where I live, what my availability is like, and then it was just kind of like, when do you want to start? They also ask if you're okay with wearing lingerie because that is the uniform for the club. It doesn't have to be like a bra and panties. It can be like a corset or a bodysuit. And that's kind of typically what I go for, is like slightly more conservative lingerie, as conservative as lingerie can be. It doesn't take a lot to get past the interview process. Kind of just have to like speak the language and look the part. The club that I work at is very biased towards skinny girls. There are some girls that are a little thicker, but you're not gonna find like super thick BBL girls. They hire a lot of girls and train them knowing that a lot of them will not really get past that point. Working at a strip club is definitely not for everyone. It's not for the faint of heart. Kind of have to have really thick skin. The environment can be very overwhelming, overstimulating, and chaotic. So a lot of people try it and figure out that it's not really a good fit for them. Had I ever been to a strip club before the one I worked at? The answer is yes, and only one. One of my really close friends used to live across the street from a strip club in Midtown, and he took us there once, like super late at night. He's like tight with the bouncers, he knows some of the dancers, and we were there with two other friends. He gave us a stack of ones. There was a girl giving me a dance. There was a girl doing like a whole thing on the pole. But yeah, that was like the only one I'd been to, and I definitely haven't been to any strip club outside of New York City. Let's talk about the work. Like I said, you have to wear lingerie and heels. Figuring out a pair of heels that works for you is arguably one of the most important aspects of the job, because if you're trying to do your job while your feet hurt, it just makes everything so miserable. When I first started working there, I did a lot of research on what makes a comfortable heel. I'll attach the ones that I wear, but basically you want something that's lower and chunkier to provide more support. You don't have to wear the crazy pleasers that the dancers do. I mean, you can if you want to, and most girls tend to prefer a taller heel than the ones that I wear, but I'm already pretty tall and I care more about being comfortable. You're supposed to have a full beat, hair done, nails done. I literally never have my nails done. I think it's more important for the dancers. As a waitress, nobody has ever said anything to me. Usually for the club, I won't even do my hair. I'll usually just do my makeup. You're not allowed to have your hair up. You're also not allowed to wear glasses. So I always have to wear contacts when I'm at the club. You're also not allowed to have like crazy unnatural hair colors. One of the dancers is only allowed to work day shift because she had like purple hair, but it's so dark in the club you literally can't even tell. The vibe of the club varies drastically based on the time of day, what day of the week it is, and how many people are there. If you're there late on Thursday, Friday, Saturday night, it's gonna be more lively and upbeat and chaotic and fun. But if it's not any of those times, the vibe can easily get into like more depressing territory. Work culture and the dynamic between staff. Working in nightlife is very, very social. Just because it's not always busy, there's not always a ton of customers to serve, but you're still expected to be out on the floor because part of your job is just being there, like the environment of there just being a bunch of hot girls. So you have a lot of time to talk and make friends. Inevitably, there is a lot of gossip. Things spread around really quickly. People are always saying shit about other people. People are very supportive. We know we're all there to make money. Girls generally look out for each other and give each other advice. Like for example, if a guy gives me a really good tip, I'll go up to a dancer and be like, hey, that guy gave me a really good tip. You should go talk to them. Because if they gave me a really good tip, maybe they would give them a really good tip. Because it's so social and you get to know everyone pretty well, it's definitely an environment where I feel very safe. Like I know if I have a conflict, people will help me, people will have my back. And obviously that's super important in this kind of environment. There is kind of this unspoken rule that it's like one girl at a time. Like if a guy's already talking to a girl, you're not gonna approach him until she walks away. It does happen all the time where a guy is just like sitting with a group of girls and hanging out with all of them. Like if a guy's cool, some of the dancers will like bring their friends over, but generally if a guy is already with a girl, then you go find somebody else. Something that I have noticed about the communication style of people at the club, it does tend to be very blunt and straightforward. Like the environment can be so chaotic and fast-paced, and everyone's just kind of there to make their bag and get the fuck out. Sometimes there isn't as much compassion as I would like in the way that people communicate with one another, but it's a very transactional place, so that's just kind of how it is. There's also this really strange culture of paying girls to cover for you. When I first got added to the waitress group chat, there were girls offering like $200 for someone to take their shift. Like especially when you're better friends with some of the girls, a lot of them will just take your shift if you need them to, out of the kindness of their heart. There is this whole culture of like expecting money just so somebody can show up in place of you when they're already going to be making money that shift. Let's talk about the staff. There's the people that own the club, there's the managers, there's the floor managers, which are also the VIP hosts. Most of the management positions they hire from within. So most of the management is people who are former dancers, waitresses, bartenders, or security. Other positions at the club besides dancers: waitresses, bartenders, porters, admission, security, flyer, house mom, bathroom attendant, coat check. For those of you who don't know what a house mom is, basically the house mom is the dressing room attendant. The girls at the club literally call her mom. She has everything you could possibly need: lashes, hairspray, phone chargers. A lot of times they even have vapes and cigarettes, and they'll also have like outfits and dresses that you can purchase. She has a whole spread of snacks. She's there to emotionally support the girls, help them out with whatever they need, and the girls tip her at the end of the night. The people at the club are the most money motivated people I've ever met in my life. Like one of the waitresses I met was talking about these people that would come to the club and they would spend thousands upon thousands of dollars. Every time they came, they would go straight into a room. The thought of making money to her was genuinely thrilling. Like the way she talked about it, like I never met anybody that was like that. A lot of the girls that work there have always worked in the service industry. A lot of girls are also models and actors. I know this one girl that was like a florist. A lot of girls are in school or they're saving up for school. According to one of the girls that I've worked there for a long time, a lot of waitresses get a job there because they're looking for a sugar daddy. If you're looking for a guy that'll send you money, the strip club is definitely a place to do it. Especially if you give out your number and establish a relationship with them. Having regulars is one of the best ways to make money. Let's talk about the customers. Last summer I took a shift or two off because I was moving between apartments. So I was literally gone for like 5 days. I come back to the club and one of the regulars is like, "Where have you been?" And I was like, dude, I've only been gone for like half a week. It's so crazy that you noticed that I was gone. Some subsects of customers that we see at the club. Tourists, obviously huge. New York City is full of them and we're in a very central area. I love getting to chat with people from all over the world. The thing that sucks about tourists is that tipping is not always in their culture, and so they don't really understand that they need to tip, and then they just don't. We get a lot of groups for birthdays, bachelor parties, friends that are in town. In December we had like enormous groups of people for holiday parties. I love the super young guys that are freshly 21. You can always tell that it's their first time at a strip club because they're staring at the stage like. Get a lot of married men that are in like boring, unhappy marriages, or just a lot of single dudes that don't get a lot of action otherwise, or are just looking for something easy. After my very first shift at the club, I went home and I went on Reddit and I was looking up why guys go to strip clubs. Like, I'm not a dude, I don't really like understand the psychology of it. A lot of guys do not have the privilege of being attractive. Like maybe they don't have aesthetically pleasing facial features, or they're a little shorter or kind of awkward, which by the way, the strip club is a great place to practice talking to and approaching women. And for a man, feeling desired is such a huge thing. So they go to this place and there's all these gorgeous women and they want to talk to you and they want to dance for you and they want to have a drink with you. And I think for men, that is just huge, even if it is under the false guise of money. There's a lot of other reasons people go to the club. It's an escape. It's a way for some people to flaunt wealth. I think the male loneliness epidemic has something to do with it. And like, yeah, people in unhappy marriages. A lot of people go because they're curious. It's a really fun place to people watch, in my opinion. The club is also sometimes a really good place to network. There's so many different people in so many different industries. Lots of people that come when they're in town for work. I've been offered full-time jobs from people I've met at the club. There was this guy that literally talked to me for 30 seconds and was like, "You would make a great recruiter," and he gave me his email. There's another guy that was like, "Do you want to be my administrative assistant?" And recently there's this guy that works on video games and he was like, "Do you want to be on my team?" And I also know of other girls who have gotten jobs from people they've met at the club. Granted, I don't always feel like people are taking me very seriously just because I'm working at a strip club and I'm not wearing a lot of clothes, but it is possible for you to get someone to like you and take you seriously. It just kind of has to be the right person. There's definitely a waitress to dancer and a waitress to bartender pipeline. I think that once you work there for a certain amount of time, you kind of just get desensitized and you're like, wait, I could just be doing that and making way more money. So a lot of girls will start out as a waitress and just end up as a dancer. And then a lot of girls will train for bar. It seems that generally bartenders make more money than waitresses do, but I think that's highly debatable. I think it depends on the person and it depends on the night. But the regulars at the club and the people who tend to go into rooms do tend to sit at the bar. The club is basically constantly hiring. Girls are very in and out, especially the dancers. There's so many girls that I'll see for like a very short period of time and then I'll just never see them again. There's also waitresses that have literally worked there on and off for the last 10 years. A lot of girls also take time off. You just have to give them an appropriate amount of notice. Anyone who applies for a job and doesn't look the part will tell them we're not hiring. How do I make money? I get an hourly pay, I get tips off of drinks, which is how I make most of my money. I get tips just from talking to people. I sell bottles. My hourly is literally only $11 an hour. I have no frame of reference, but apparently from other girls who work in hospitality, that's considered a really good hourly rate for a tipped worker. Most of my money I make off of tips from drinks. Everyone that walks into the club has to buy at least one drink. Our drinks are quite expensive. It's a strip club. People can either pay through cash or credit card. We automatically charge 20% gratuity to all credit card transactions, which is nice for making sure that you make some sort of tip, but it is taxed, which kind of sucks. That's why cash is king, as it always has been in the service industry. I always tell people to go to the ATM before you go to the club. If the club does have an ATM inside it, it's gonna have ridiculously absurd fees. A big way that we make money off of tips that the club is like constantly pushing for is asking guys if they want to buy a drink for a girl if they're sitting down with a dancer. So as a waitress, you're constantly scanning like who's talking to who and who seems like they're getting along well enough for them to buy him a drink. How long have they been sitting there? Because if you ask too early, the guy isn't sure if he wants to invest in buying a drink for the dancer. But if you ask too late, somebody might beat you to it and they would make the tip off of the drink, or the dancer might have convinced them to go get a dance. The way I think about waitressing is that there's two main components to the job. First is actually serving drinks, and then there's talking to people. My job at the club literally makes me feel like I go on dates for a living. Like I'll end up talking to some guy and they'll ask to buy me a drink and I'll sit down with them and we'll chat and basically just go on a little date. At the club, guys will literally tip you out just to talk to them. Guys will literally pay you just to sit there and talk to them and be in their company. My friend who's a bartender literally had a guy tip her $40 every 15 minutes just to talk to her. And by the end of the night, she made over $200 from him alone. When I first started working at the club and I didn't know this, one of the hosts was like, yeah, you can't just sit there without a drink. Like they don't get to talk to you for free. And at the time that was really crazy for me to wrap my head around. Like I am so valuable that somebody has to buy me a drink just to spend time with me. I also make money off of bottles. We don't sell bottles super often, but you can make a really good chunk of change from them when you do. If the bottle is sold at the door, you split the commission with the admissions girl, but if you sell it by yourself on the floor, then you can make over $100 just from the tip alone. The service bartender makes all of the drinks for the waitresses and also for the hosts for the rooms. And so at the end of the night, you give the service bartender 10% of your cash tips. So the big question, how much do I usually make in a shift? My shifts are 8 hours, and I would say that on average, with my hourly pay after tax, including credit card and cash tips, I probably make around $300. Again, it's really not that much money. The most I've ever made in a night was around $700, and a good portion of that was off a single transaction. I made $310 off of bottle service. The guy tipped me $200 cash on top of the 20% already included in the gratuity for the bottle. It was this guy, he like knew the owner. He took his sister to the club for her 21st birthday. She brought her friends and a bunch of family members, and she liked girls, so she literally said for her 21st that she wanted to go to a strip club, which I think is such a cool way of ringing in 21. Although the concept of going to a strip club with your family members is a little bit odd to me, but they were such a nice group and they had a lot of fun. And then that night I also made $206 just off of like regular tips. And this was on a Friday, by the way. But yeah, that was my best night, was just a random Friday in January. Everyone told me that January and February were trash because it's so cold in New York and so nobody's going out, but I did very, very well in January and February. Before that, my record was a Saturday last summer. I made around $500 in tips. The club is very high highs and very low lows. In January and February, I was making almost $1,000 a weekend. And then it just kind of started going downhill, and then in April, it kind of started to pick back up. It's honestly so unpredictable. There is no pattern. When you go in, there's no way of knowing whether you're gonna have a good or bad night. You have to go and just find out. And this is like very new to me. I've never had a job where I didn't know how much money I was going to make, as opposed to other work that has like a standard day rate or a standard hourly rate. It is more exciting in a way, but obviously it's also just super inconsistent. How much do other girls make? I would like to say that as a waitress, I do pretty well. The most I've ever heard of a waitress making in one night is $2,000. Making that much money just off the floor seems insane. It could totally be hearsay. She could have been lying to me, but that's just what one girl said that she had made in a night. I've honest to God no idea how much the dancers make. I've never asked, but I'm sure it's a hell of a lot more money than I do. What is the business model of a strip club? I love strip club economics. This shit is so interesting to me. So basically everyone that works at a club is an employee except the dancers. The dancers are independent contractors. The club provides them with a clientele and a place to work. So the dancers actually pay to be there. There's a house fee that ranges anywhere from $80 to $140. The only time I'm pretty positive we don't have a house fee is Saturday day shift, because there's just not a lot of people that come in on Saturdays during the day. The later you show up, the higher the house fee is. You also have to tip the DJ $20. He's the one announcing all the dancers that come on stage. And then you also have to tip the house mom $20. It's not until you surpass 120 to 180 that you actually start making money. And dances are $20 each. So you can do the math. And that excludes all the extraneous costs of being a dancer and maintaining a certain image. Getting your nails done, getting waxed, buying dresses, buying makeup, getting your hair done. And transportation, which is a big one. A lot of girls take Ubers because they don't feel safe taking the train. And Ubers in the city are super expensive. Or a lot of girls drive and have to pay for parking, which also in the city is not cheap. I've also seen a lot of girls get work done. Like they'll just take some time off and they'll just have new boobs. One of the funniest things I've heard at the club, this girl was talking to another girl and was like, oh my god, I love your boobs. Are they yours? Which I think is such a hilarious way of asking if someone's gotten work done. I took a long international trip in December. Before I went, I was talking to one of the bouncers about it and he was like, is that code for you're gonna come back with like new boobs or a new butt? And I was like, no, I'm not going overseas for plastic surgery. Like I'm literally just going just to travel. And I think it's just so funny that that was the thought that he had. And it's not that crazy because of where we work. Like he's probably had so many girls tell him that they're going on a trip and they come back looking different. I think a huge part of the business model for the club is that people find a girl that they like and then they keep coming back for her. Like so many people come in and they're like, where's this girl? Is this girl working tonight? There is an insane amount of regulars that come into the club. Like you would not believe how often some people come in and spend a lot of time and a lot of money at the club. There are so many people whose names and orders I have memorized. They also tend to overbook girls at the club just because our hourly is so low. It is so cheap to keep us there and they kind of want us to fill the environment. Like they want people to walk in and be like, holy shit, there are just so many gorgeous women here. But it sucks for us because there's only so many customers that we can make money off of. So when we're overstaffed, we all make less money. Like it gets to a point where it's a little insane. Like there's more girls than customers. Let's talk about rooms. You can make a lot of money off of rooms. And it is the primary financial incentive at the club. You get a cut of the money that the guy pays for the room. And a lot of times they tip you on top of that. So if it's a $2,000 room and you're talking about a standard like 20% tip, it's a lot of money. This is the way to make money at the club. What happens in these rooms, you ask? Some people go to rooms and they just talk and hang out and drink, and other people go into rooms and do all kinds of crazy stuff. Some girls will literally do 2 or 3 rooms a night, or they'll be in a room for hours and hours and hours with the same person. The crazy thing about rooms, in my opinion, is that we're allowing these women to be alone in a room with a man who is a stranger. Like I don't know if there's cameras in there, and if you scream, someone would probably hear you, but it's just the fact that anything can fucking happen. Like violent crimes. We don't know these people. I think it's crazy that we're all okay with this concept just because there's so much money involved. Like I can't help but think that like doing this is in a way risking your life because you don't really know who this person is. And all of a sudden you're just in this intimate setting with them. Substances. Everyone at the club vapes. Everyone at the club vapes. Girls are always smoking cigarettes in the bathroom. There was this dancer that I had seen around and I recognized her, but I've literally never spoken 2 words to her. She came up to me and she was like, do you have weed? And I was like, no, I don't. And she confided in me that she had gone to rehab for it and she wishes that she didn't need it because she works better without it, but she just needed marijuana. There are so many opportunities to drink at the club. We have a code word that the girls can use if they want to order alcohol, but they don't want alcohol in it. So they'll say like vodka Red Bull, the word, and you'll know to not put vodka in it. You're allowed to drink with customers, you're allowed to take shots with customers. And I think that makes the shifts a little easier when you do. But I've definitely seen girls get way too lit, and if you're a waitress, you can definitely get fired for it. And because you work in nightlife, you're like, oh yeah, like drinking is literally like my job. But you still have to do your job without fucking up, so you kind of just have to like know yourself and know your limits. People do a lot of drugs in the rooms. This girl was like, oh yeah, I just like, you know, pretend. I was like, oh cool. Okay, just like be careful is basically what I'm trying to say. This is a world where it's really easy to fall into that. Let's talk about drama. Honestly, I'm not too involved with the drama that happens at the club. I have this rule that I don't take the strip club outside of the strip club. And for a long time, nobody had my number, nobody had my Instagram. I didn't really talk about my personal life. But now that I've worked there a little longer and I have formed genuine connections with some of the girls, some of them do have my number, some of them do have my social media. Some of them do actually know me as a person. A lot of girls have this boundary where they don't really give specific details about their life. And I think that's for the best. I mean, we all have fake names for a reason, right? There's only one girl that works at the club that I don't like, which I think is pretty impressive considering how many people work at that club. Statistically, I'm doing pretty well. There's definitely drama with like girls getting fired, interpersonal conflict. Otherwise, I hear about little things all the time, like I don't like talking to this person because they always blab to other people, or this person was spreading rumors about me. Like that stuff is like pretty common. Do I like the job? This is a complicated question. I really go through waves. My friend who's a dancer in Atlanta, she shares the exact same sentiment as me. When we make money, we're like, oh my god, this is amazing. I love this job. When we're not making money, we're like, holy shit, what am I doing? I have a college degree. Why am I here? My feelings about the club vary on a day-to-day basis. Overall, I do like the job. I'm a very social person. I like the people I work with. It's a very fun place to work. It's also flexible. It works really well with the whole acting, freelancing thing that I do. I'm familiar with the environment. I'm familiar with the people. I know how to do my job and I know how to do it well. And when I make money at the club, sometimes it's like a high that I cannot even describe. Just like, holy shit, I made that amount of money in one shift. But I also say that exact same sentiment when the opposite happens and I make like less than $100 in tips in one night. I despise the job when I'm bored. Basically, when I don't have people to serve and I'm not making any money and time is just passing by so slow. That is when I dislike the job the most. The interesting thing about the club, and I had this realization early on, is that it is one of the only places you can talk to men without fearing for your safety. Like in the real world, if you talk to a man you don't know if he's crazy, you don't know if he's violent, you don't know if he's gonna try to pull something. At the club, there are literally so many people around, pretty much for the entire purpose of keeping you safe. Because obviously there's a ton of women working there and they're in a very vulnerable position. So yeah, it's cool to be able to talk to men without fearing for my safety. And that's cool because I love talking to people. And being able to talk to men without that extra layer added on top is really nice. It's a nice change of pace. Even though the job is not super lucrative, I do think it's generally a net positive. I think I've improved my people skills. I think I've gained a new understanding of the world through the lens of this industry. And overall just have had so many fun memories at the club. Even though there are some not so fun ones as well, I also just love using the strip club as a punchline. Like if I'm joking about the fact that my life isn't going really well, I'm just like, yeah, I work at a strip club and it just works. I think a big downside of working at the club is that I am not as compassionate of a person as I would like to be. Like I don't want to assume the worst of people. I know that some of the customers are very genuine and very kind, but it becomes very difficult to exercise that when customers are constantly testing my patience. I would also say that my relationship to money has changed. I've never been somebody that was around people with money, and working at the club has definitely opened my eyes to how people with money act and how they spend it and how people treat you when you have it. I've also realized that I don't want to date somebody who is stingy with their money. Like it's one thing to be frugal, but it's another to be unwilling to spend money on very reasonable things. Like I want to date somebody who is nice to their wait staff and tips them generously, especially if they know that they're in a very privileged place financially, which a lot of men in New York City are. Let's get into frequently asked questions. Why don't I bartend? One of my friends that I met there actually was talking to me, and he used to be a bartender, and he was like, when you're a waitress, you're serving. They think of you as lowly, but when you're a bartender, you stand between people and their alcohol. You're the king of the castle, you have so much power, and people think more highly of you. I've trained bar once. I think I would be a really great bartender. I would just need a lot of practice making drinks. I don't bartend because they don't have my preferred shift. The bartender's hourly pay is also exactly the same as the waitresses, except they have more responsibility. Also, when you bartend, you can't run from people. Like if there's somebody I don't like or somebody I'm trying to avoid, I'm a waitress, I can just go somewhere else. But if you're a bartender and somebody sits in front of you, it's kind of impossible to run from them. Why am I not a dancer? I wish I could dance. I would be less poor. There's a lot of reasons for this. First, I have body image issues, and I have for a long time. Second, because of my job, I have been adjacent to sex workers for a good amount of time, and I figured out that I couldn't do what they do. Like just like people touching you all the time, being in close proximity to guys who smell bad and don't know how to respect your boundaries and are assholes. Sometimes when I'm waitressing, I don't really feel like talking to people, and I can get away with that. If you're a dancer, you kind of have to talk to people to make money, and that's just like a lot. Like I am very social. I can't guarantee that I'm always gonna be in that state of mind. Why not work as like a high-end waitress at a restaurant or something? I don't have connects like that. I imagine I would make more money doing that, but I feel like also it wouldn't be as exciting. I also don't know how to waitress properly. It's a strip club. The formalities aren't really there. Like you just put a drink in front of them. It doesn't really fucking matter. But I know that with like proper waitressing, there's like I don't know, there's more things, right? And I'm unfamiliar with them just because the strip club doesn't really care. And also we don't serve food. If I really wanted to, I could figure out a way to do that. I think the club would be more fun. Advice I have for other girls that are curious about this world. There's some girls that start working at the club when they're like freshly 18 or 19. I didn't start working there until I was 24. I mean, if you're young and you really want to do it, go for it. I think it's best to be a little bit older and have a little more life experience and maturity, have more of a chance to like develop your identity outside of just being a beautiful woman. Like, I think I would have a very different perspective on the world as a result of this job if I hadn't gone to college and worked for a few years in a completely different industry, because then I have external professional validation that I am worth more than just the way that I look. I'd like do whatever you want, but like when you're young and impressionable, working in a strip club can take a toll on you. You're beautiful, but you're also a lot of other things. And I think that's important to discover in the world outside of the strip club. Have a lot of conviction in your boundaries. Know who you are and know what you're willing to do, and don't let other people manipulate you or coerce you into doing something that you don't want to do. You are allowed to say no, and having the confidence to stand up for yourself and assert yourself in difficult situations is not an easy skill, but I think one that is imperative in this field. I will say there are a lot of behaviors that you will have to put up with that are not ideal, and I think this is the part where it's like, this job is not for everybody. Guys at the club will hit on you aggressively. They're gonna want to take you out, they're gonna ask for your number. I had a guy offer me $1,000 to go to a Hilton with him. Don't give out your number. I mean, people do it, and I have done it a couple times, but like very selectively. If you're gonna give out your number, get a Google Voice number. Don't give out your real number. I had a guy at one of my bottle tables tell me that he was gonna stuff his down my throat and that I was gonna like it, and I was like, what makes you think that you can just say that to me? And I just rolled my eyes and walked away. Had a guy at another bottle table literally grab my arm and like stick my hand on his crotch. He was literally holding me hostage as he was like, I want to see you outside the club, like give me your number. And I literally was like, holy shit, how do I get out of this? I kept saying like, I'm sorry, I don't give out my number, just like in the most polite way possible. But he was persistent, and I was like, okay, later. And then he finally let go of me, and I was like, holy shit. So just know that you're gonna be put in uncomfortable situations. People are not going to be respectful towards you. Another piece of advice, the job is 10 times worse when you are worrying about the amount of money you're gonna make. If I place too much importance on the amount of money I'm making, then I'm just pretty much always having a bad time. Even though money is important and it does suck when you don't make it, you have to understand that this is the kind of job where you're not always gonna make money. And so like, why torture yourself? I haven't dated too much since I've worked at the club. Most of the time I talk about the job on the first date. I don't talk about it unless we've met up in person. I did go out with like an older guy. I didn't tell him at all, but we only went on one date. A lot of girls at the club quit because their boyfriends aren't cool with them working there. And I'm not familiar with everyone's personal lives, obviously, but for the people whose situations I'm aware of, none of the girls at the club really have stable relationships. It takes a particular kind of person to be cool with that. And I'm not saying that person doesn't exist, especially if you live in a big city. People are into all sorts of crazy things. There needs to be a lot of trust in that relationship, and whoever you're with needs to be very, very secure in themselves and also in the relationship. I can't speak from personal experience because I haven't really been in a relationship since I've been working at the club. I've definitely gone out with guys that were totally cool with me working there, but nothing that like ended up turning into something serious. Basically, I'm just trying to say it's not the easiest of circumstances to have a loving, trusting relationship under. And that is everything that I wanted to say. I have a year's worth of journal entries from the club. On the way home, I would just be jotting down like all the crazy shit I'd seen and heard, various things that had happened to me just for posterity. And so I'm just gonna read them off. There's this guy that was complaining that his beer wasn't cold enough and that the limes were dry. Bitch, this is a strip club. This is not a gourmet bar. Go somewhere else. We are always getting pissed at people that have way too high of expectations for the bar. Like, you're not here for our drinks. You're here for something entirely different. I waitressed on the 4th of July, and that crowd was single-handedly the drunkest, most disgusting crowd I'd ever encountered at the club. People were being so gross. On that night, there was this guy, and I was bringing him the check, and he was like, how's your night going? And I was like, actually, everyone is horrible tonight. And he was like, okay, so $20 tip. And I was like, thank you. Here's the thing about the club. Surprisingly enough, it has not lowered my opinion of men, because there are a lot of guys that go, they're super considerate, they're super generous, and they treat you like a human being. And I would say that there's more of those guys than like the super gross ones that touch you without asking. On my very first shift at the club, there was a guy that said that the bathroom was the saddest and best bathroom in America. And then he gave all the waitresses in line for the service bartender a $20 bill, which was super sick. I think that's the only time I've ever been tipped in line at this service bar. There was a guy that kept refusing to order a drink until I told him he had to. I brought him his drink and he straight up ignored me. The bouncer took him outside and talked to him. He returned and was complicit. When I asked the bouncer what he said to the customer, he said, stuff. There was a guy that told me I was the prettiest girl in the club, and he gave me an $8 tip because of it. Later, he slammed another stack of dollar bills in front of me without even looking at me. He just kept smoking his cigarette. I got asked out on dates twice in one night, both by honestly not bad looking dudes in business attire. One of them was actually cute and really tall. I asked one of them why he goes to the strip club, and he said he's never been asked that before. There was once a reality TV show star that was there with her manager. And just a side note, I don't watch reality TV, but during the pandemic, I binged a show and she was on that show. Her manager was this gay dude who said that he managed a few of the clients and she was one of the more difficult ones. He took her debit card, went to an ATM, came back to give it to her, and then left her at the club. He said that the strip club was too straight for him. She took her tits out before she even got past admissions. The bouncer asked for ID and then she pulled out her tits. She was like, here's my ID. She did it again later in the night. There was a dancer she latched onto all night. She kept asking where she was when the girl went into her room. She was a very needy drunk and she was also like wasted. She said she had a lot of money and she was gonna tip me, and then she didn't. Met a guy that wouldn't get a lap dance because he's married. Turns out faithful men do exist. Had a really interesting conversation with a guy that was married. He said that he had low self-esteem, and on the scale of fidelity to infidelity, he considered going to the strip club closer to the fidelity side. There's this guy that comes into the club and he has this bit where he literally only stays for like 5 minutes. He chats with the girl for a bit, gives her $100 for an Uber home, gives her his business card, says, if you ever need anything like money, let me know. And then he just leaves. I had a VIP table that was literally ordering like $300 rounds of shots at a time. They were paying all cash. They wouldn't even be done with the last round and they would order a new one. There was a host helping me with the table because there were so many fucking glasses and she was collecting the last round. And I was like, that one's not even, like, no one's even touched that one. And she was like, doesn't matter, just keep them coming. And that was when I was like, right, yeah. It makes way too much sense to finish the drinks that you ordered before you order new ones. That doesn't matter because what matters is that we're making money. We're selling more drinks. I guess I'm just gonna like throw away $100 worth of shots. There was this waitress that was talking about how this one guy apparently tips girls $20,000 for rooms. This was at a bottle table. One of the dancers asked one of the guys, how tall are you? And he was like, however tall you want me to be. There was this group of guys that really liked this dancer and they were like, give this girl a raise. And I was the one that was like, guys, she's a stripper. You are the raise. Tip her. There's this guy I met at the club who makes like a couple $1 million a year who said to me, this is not where you're supposed to be. And this is something I get all the time. I'll talk to somebody and they'll be like, you're smart, you're educated. Why are you here? And I was always like, I like this job. I don't know, like I would feel weird about people basically saying like you're too good to work here. And it was just kind of like, I don't know, am I? I wrote in my journal that my instinct is always to be brutally honest, but also I'm working at a strip club where everything is like a fantasy. So maybe I should be better at lying to make people feel good about themselves. Like maybe when guys ask me if I think they're attractive, I should just say yes, because I would do better if I made them feel good about themselves, right? Like that is the goal that we're going for here. Met a guy with 3 kinds of cancer. He was no stranger to strip clubs. He told me that he had never met a girl with so much personality at the club. I remember sitting down and having a drink with him. He made a joke. He was like, I would be so honored if you were my ex-wife. And I thought that was really funny. I wrote, waitressing at a strip club is the least prostitute-y way to financially benefit from being hot. Not 100% sure that's true. One of the hosts was telling me stories. She's worked there for like a really long time. She said it could be super stressful to be in a management position. You have to finesse so many different kinds of people. You have to be the party girl, the therapist, the chameleon. She told me about this guy that was the CEO of a huge bank that would come in twice a month and did a room with 5 girls. He pretended that he was on his period for the first time. He would put a tampon up his ass, ask for my doll, and have the girls pamper him like he was on his period. And then he would put his suit back on and have dinner with his wife. And then later he died of a heart attack. And then the second story she told me was that there were these 2 guys that would go into a room with girls. They were actually gay lovers and they would spend the hour cuddling and the girls would just hang out and let them do their thing. There was one shift I found $200 on the VIP table. Like just sitting there, it was 2 $100 bills. I told security and they were like, if somebody comes up to me and is like, I lost $200, then obviously you have to give it back. But if nobody says anything, then it's yours. And I went home that night with $200 extra. I saw a guy with a t-shirt on that read, I'm scared of women. I saw it, laughed, and I went up to him and I was like, did you do that on purpose? And he was like, yeah, I thought it was funny. And I was like, yeah, it is funny. There was a waitress that told me that this guy came up to her and asked, do you do sex or no? I wrote down the only job that I can think of that might be more interesting than the strip club is if I worked at like a mental hospital or like a psychiatric ward, but that would be potentially unsafe and terrifying, and also I don't qualify to work there. Near the holidays is kind of considered the most lucrative time to work at the club. I did not really feel like I made that much money near the holidays. I was working in November and I was hanging out with my bottle table. They weren't tipping me. One of the girls that has worked there for a long time was like, you shouldn't be wasting your time like that. I feel like I have a tendency to be too nice. Like if someone wants to talk to me, I will probably give them more of my time than I should, even though like the whole spirit of the strip club is like, if there's no money involved, then move the fuck on. I don't know, sometimes I have a hard time walking away. Strip clubs are considered a recession indicator, so I was in the dressing room and one of the dancers was like changing her makeup and changing her outfit, and she was like, is there a lip gloss that cancels the economy? Met a guy at the club. It was like this dude with glasses. He was sitting alone by the stage. He came with a friend, but this friend was like hanging out with the dancer. He just finished writing a novel and he had spent the last 5 weeks basically just getting fucked up. He said he wanted to put money aside to get the book published after he dies. He said he dated a girl whose writing was bad, and he literally told her, because he said he believes in literature so much that he thought he owed it to her to tell her that the world would be better off without the thing that she wrote. There's this guy I met that had apparently been going to the club for a long time. It's like a pretty charismatic guy. He used to be a better tipper, but he was still a pretty good tipper. He gave me a couple of 20s throughout our conversation. I've seen him twice. The first time I met him, he was like, you don't date married men. And I was like, correct. I don't. He was telling me about how he doesn't have any vices except for women. Like he doesn't do drugs, he only drinks socially. He would date young girls and mentor them, like for business stuff, and then sleep with them. He was married with kids. He spoke very highly of his wife. Like she's amazing, she's the mother of his children, but that was his thing. Really made me think about like, if a man is a provider and you're already in so deep with like marriage and kids, how much are you willing to put up with? There was this guy that was like, I've spent way too much money tonight, and the dancer he was with, he refused to buy her a drink, and then 10 minutes later, he was buying her another drink. Overheard at the strip club, Habibi, you ready my boobs in your face? I can't do justice to the delivery of that. He was like a dancer with like a bit of an accent. Overheard at the strip club, I'm so spiritual now, I can't have sex with anyone I don't love anymore, but I can do hand stuff. One of the waitresses that's worked at the club for a long time told me that she started working there because her friend fell in love with a stripper there, and so she went to the club with him one day and they were just like, you want to work here? And then when she started working there, she fell madly in love with the customer there, which I think is like the coolest full circle moment story ever. Okay, that's all I have for you. My whole thing with working at the club is I want to say that when I was 24, I worked at a strip club and I got everything out of it that I wanted to. I experienced everything that I could experience, good or bad. I have fond memories from it, I have not so fond memories from it, and I am grateful for every second of it. No idea how much longer I'll work there. I want to get to a point where I only cover shifts here and there, not really financially in a place to make that happen at the very moment. Like I do the job for fun just to like see people and meet people, and like the money is nice, but it's not like about the money anymore. That's my goal with the job. Maybe one day I'll be like super over it, but for now, it's definitely something I want to keep around in my life. Last thing I'll say, please tip your waitresses. Please, please, please tip your waitresses. We don't make a lot of money, we're working hard for you. If you have enough disposable income to go to a strip club, then you should be able to tip your waitresses. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you very soon. Bye.